Hello, friends. Getting everybody all hooked up. Hello, Monique. It's not, oh, it is late. I'm sorry. For a second there, oh, it's not too late. And then I didn't realize how much of this day has flown by already. Well, welcome. Good to have you here. Hello, Light Blue. Good to have you here. So I've called this more photomechanical tricks for capturing a likeness. So that's what I'm going to do. First of all, let me try to get my in-ear monitor working here. Bear with me just a moment. Hello, David Mercer. Hello, Dolores. Thank you for joining me today. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I know, no sound. There we go. Do we have sound now? We do not. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Hang on, YouTube friends, we're trying to get Facebook. Hello, Eric. You're a new viewer, a new speaker-upper, anyway. Thank you for speaking up. I'm afraid I have a bad piece of equipment somewhere. All right, so Facebook, we're just going to go with ambient sound. At least you can hear me. Hello, Alberto. All right, this is, I've got two paintings going here. This is the one I'm going to work on today. I did this one yesterday, and if you want to see me do work prior to this, that's 2 days ago, okay? Yesterday I did this without your company, and I started out just by copying, and then yesterday I began employing various tricks. So the first one, as you can see here, as I did the old-fashioned grid. Just a couple tips. If you're going to use one of these tricks, then hello, Julia and Diana. It helps a lot to make your lines alternate colors. Red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. And then up here at the face, I actually subdivided that with black. So different colors on your grid helps a great deal. And then I also drew on the painting with a watercolor pencil, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue. So that just a quick tip to help you. If you're going to cheat, if you're going to use some of these tricks, then at least use them well. The next thing I did is I had a print. This is Lily, and I had in Photoshop, I made a print of Lily that was exactly the same size as my painting. Now I want to dwell on it just for a second, because I want you to, that's not what you think. You think what you would think normally is you do the painting to the same size as your print, But in order to do that, then you need to start your painting process with a photomechanical trick. Are you following me? And that's perfectly legal. You're more than welcome to start out any painting using tricks. But when you do that, your skills deteriorate. Your brain shrinks, as I like to say. All right? So instead of doing that, I started this painting just by looking and painting. Now, it didn't look like this at the time. It looked more like this when I was done. But then once I've got the painting to a certain size, then the next photomechanical trick that I employ is in Photoshop. Now, and I'm assuming you guys have computers. I'm assuming you have Photoshop, which is $20 a month, by the way, or $10 a month. Sorry, it used to be 20, now it's 10. That's pretty cheap. And I know for some of you, this is just a hobby. You don't want to mess with that. But for some of you are serious hobbyists, then you might want to think about that. And I'm assuming you have a printer as well, or that you don't mind running down to Kinko's and getting your print made. Anyway, so I know I'm assuming a lot, but I want you to know what my tricks are. And once I have, now I had already used, I already used a grid, right? Already done a grid, and then erased the grid, and I had the painting close. Then the last trick that I did is, all right, this is the cheap version. These are called proportional dividers. They come fancy and cheap. These are cheap. This is the same device, but it's not proportional. It's a measuring device. And it's much more precise. It's much more precise than this cheap plastic version. First of all, the cheap plastic version is easier to accidentally budge. I've put tape on mine to make it stiffer. It's still easy to budge. This, on the other hand, is a little bit stiffer, and of course it comes to an absolute razor sharp point there. So it's very good, so you can do things like the distance between her two, excuse me, I'm going to be in your way for a second, but you know what I'm doing. Okay, pupil to pupil. Ooh, and I've had a little bit of creep. My painting is shifted. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. I have one more along those same lines, one more device that's even more precise than that, and that is a plain old-fashioned, high-tech, low-tech compass. So it doesn't budge at all. Once you get the setting, and this is an ink pen here. You could use a pencil, but anyway, I'm getting too far. But again, just to let you know what some of the tricks are, this is one of them. So now, that's not going to budge, right? So you're not in danger of messing up. All right. So I will use some more of these today as I proceed on Lily's brother, Gerhardt. Let me pause here just for a minute. Oh, wait, let's get legal. Let's get official and say that this is Daily Art Adventure number 911. Whoa, 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 let's get it straight out here. Daily Art Adventure number 911 in my broken clapper. This is getting more ridiculous as the months go on. Now, I'm not going to work on her. Right now I'm going to work on Gerhardt. They're twins, by the way. Let me zoom in as close as I can here just for a second. All right. What's wrong with this? First of all, it's not bad, right? Admit that it's not bad. And by the way, I'm not even asking you to give me dimensional problems or dimensional mistakes. Like it looks to me like the distance from the edge of her nostril to, let's say, the bottom of her ear right there. No, that's exactly correct. How about from the corner of her mouth to the edge of her neck? Let's try that. Nope, it's exactly correct. All right, so there's something happening here that makes this look to me like it's a little too narrow. Be that as it may, that's not really what I'm talking about. And I sort of don't want you to answer this question because I want to tell you what's wrong with it. This is pretty precise. Now her tongue, I don't have the right color. Needs to be lighter and more orange. I've got it slightly too dark and slightly too cool. Panic, don't worry, I'm not worried. This was as good as I could do last night working alla primo, wet and wet and wet and wet. You can only change your mind and move things around, but so much when the painting's wet. But the main thing that's quote unquote wrong with this, the way she is right now, her face looks hard. Her eyes somehow look a little too dark, don't they? Her mouth looks a little, and that's exact, they are too dark. But the detail is a little bit too sharp, too crisp, and so forth. So I just want to point that out so you can understand what am I going to do when I come back to this painting to finish it. Now the background is less finished than she is, but I'm going to put beautiful little Lily away now, and let's talk instead about Gerhardt. All right, same tricks involved. The last thing I did with Gerhardt, and this is 2 days ago, the last thing I did with him, the last trick I used was grid. Red, blue, red, blue, red, red, blue, red, blue, and then even smaller black here around his face and around their hands. And I drew with a black pencil, which I'm going to do the same thing today. So that's the last trick. Now again, let me back up here and just talk about this use of photomechanical tricks. And I've said this a lot, so repeat to you regulars. I would rather not cheat. I would rather not use any tricks at all. But most of the great artists did and do. So it's most, not all, but most. I've already said when you use these photomechanical tricks, your drawing skills do not grow. And I don't like that. I want my drawing skills to grow. In fact, if you use these photomechanical tricks a lot, your drawing skills actually deteriorate. I don't like the idea of my brain shrinking, to use picturesque language, right? So that's two caveats. Number 3, if you become overly dependent on these kinds of tricks, grid, measure, trace, proportional divider, or more fancy measuring devices, all of these tricks are based upon two-dimensionality, right? It's moving things up, down, left, right. And again, this is related to your brain shrinking. If you become too reliant on these tricks, so part of the reason I'm doing them is to show you. Part of the reason is I want to hurry up and get these portraits done because I'm being paid. I'm not being paid a lot, as you may know. I just want to get them done. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use tricks to get them out the door and get money in the door. But we are in actuality, we are not drawing or rendering two-dimensional objects. We're drawing three-dimensional objects. So what I want to say is this. In conjunction with using these tricks, in my humble opinion, which some of you know ain't so humble, in my humble opinion, while you're using tricks, if you want to be a better artist, okay, all this is predicated, all this is assuming you want to be a better artist. Okay, if you don't, then just enjoy the ride. But I want to be a better artist. So I had better be doing my homework. Hey, hang on just a second. I just thought of something I can show you. Speaking of homework. Speaking of homework. What do I mean by homework? Well, I just happen to have some of my recent homework right here. All right, big sketchbook with a bunch of really loose drawings in it. This was a class that I was teaching a long time ago. But I want to come back here to the work that I've been doing, the homework that I've been doing in the last couple of months. This is prompted by the fact that I'm going to be teaching an anatomy class, a 13-week anatomy class, starting, Lord willing, in August. This, ladies and gentlemen, is homework. This is learning how to draw how to draw mouths, ears, heads. This is my schematic for learning how to draw the hips, what the hips look like, more hips, another ear, and then I do a bunch of legs, all with different tricks. More legs, more legs, oh, more legs. Finally, the whole figure, and now I'm getting into torso, shoulder, torso. Anyway, are you impressed? Torso, arms. This is all stuff that I've done in the last probably 6 weeks. Arms, shoulders, and that's the last page. All right. This is one side of your homework, yours and mine, if you want to be a good artist. The other side, of course, is observation, either in life or from photos. So again, when I started out these paintings 2 days ago, that's the skill I was exercising. I wasn't using any photomechanical tricks because I want my brain to grow. So I'm doing my rote homework in that book right there and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm doing my observation. Those two things work in tandem. They are not the same. Just because you do a whole bunch of copying of a model or a photograph doesn't mean you're going to learn how the body fits together. And just because you learn how the body fits together, you're not going to be able to draw a believable human figure. You must do both together. They fit together. They're not the same. Same thing is true if you're just doing portraits. If you want to be a good portrait painter, you need to study. You're going to draw 1,000 noses, ears, eyes, eyebrows, chins, mouths, and so forth and so on and so forth. You're going to understand the mechanics of it and so on and so forth. At the same time, 1,000 might be a slight exaggeration. Not if you're me, but that's another story. Over the decades, sure, 1,000. So I'm building up my rote memory, R-O-T-E. That's English word for just memorize the dang thing. Rote memory and then observation. These two things need to work in tandem. Now, in addition, sort of a third layer on top of that, or a third in contrast to that, of course, is all the stuff I'm talking about today, which is photomechanical tricks. But again, what got me on this is if you become too dependent on these tricks, you're not going to do your homework and you're not going to do your observation. So again, if you want to be a better artist, then you pay attention. If you don't care, then of course it doesn't matter. You can just do whatever you want. This is just for fun for most of you. All right, so let's start doing photomechanical tricks. And I'm supposed to have a red pencil here, but things tend to wander off over the week, so never mind. I'll just use one of my black pencils. All right, so let's get started. Finally, precious little Gerhardt. What are we doing? I see a lot of chats here. Let me see if I can go back and see. Hello, Kevin. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, Kevin, that is so great. Trinidad and Tobago. Wow. That would be a fun place to visit. I like blue, I like it. Batman had his utility belt. and Knopp from Staunton. How fun. All right, so here's the first trick. I went upstairs last night and took this with me upstairs. I'm sorry, upstairs is where my computer is. My other studio is upstairs. I have 2 studios. It's a strange story. Never mind, I'm a rich man. And I worked and worked and worked till I got this print to be exactly the same size as this painting. Okay? Now the first thing I'm going to do, and this is a dry painting, by the way, that helps. There's things you can't do on a wet painting, and here's one of them. You can't you can't tape stuff. You can't tape things onto a wet painting, right? But this is a dry painting. Oil painting with lots of liquid, so it's dry. Liquid is this stuff, right? So dry is very quick. It was dry yesterday, so it's even more dry today. What I've just done with this identical size is I've taped it up here, making sure that the print is level, is straight. Okay, so that's trick number 1. Because one of the things I'm going to do is find the exact angle of Gerhardt's head. And look at this. Talk about a good trick. If I expand this out so you can, this is a yardstick. Now there's a reason for using such a long device. Let me see if I can, do I have a short ruler around here somewhere? No, I don't think I do. Well, let's do like what maybe many artists. No, wait. I do have. It's not a ruler, but I want you to see the difference. Here's a short stick, right? It's actually part of a canvas stretcher, but I want to get the exact angle of his head, going right through the middle of his pupil. And then I want to hold this stick at exactly that angle and come up here to the painting. Are you with me? But because this stick is so short, it's a lot easier to mess up that angle. Whereas if I use a long stick, because it goes way out that way and way out that way. Now let me do it again. Right, splitting his pupils right exactly. All right, now watch. See, if I twist it a little bit, it's a lot more obvious because I have way out here, I have the ends of the yardstick moving 2 inches. Does that make any sense to you? So if you really want to match an angle, put down that ruler and pick up a yardstick. So all I've done there is replicate pretty darn close. Are you with me? Pretty darn close to the exact angle of Gerhardt's head as determined by his eyes. All right? That's the most important line in anybody's face, is pupil to pupil. So his head's not straight. Now, should be able to go like this, but I'm not going to do that right now. But there's a little trick. I'm going to jump right into then making some measurements, and I'm going to start by going from the out. I'm going to do several from the outside. Am I right in your way? I am. I'm going to move you guys because I'm afraid I'm going to be in your way a lot. And once again, I just when I'm doing stuff like this, I used to use the word cheating, and there's a big part of me that still wants to, but I don't want to discourage you guys by using the word cheating, okay? This is a coping mechanism. This is not good painting per se. This is what you do if you have to do it to get the job done, all right? All right, so I'm going to try to guess from the very outmost point of his ear to that pupil is, let's do that again. Now, even the fact that I'm using a pencil instead of painting, making marks with a brush, you understand? I would rather be painting paint with a brush than a pencil. But on the other hand, I'd rather knock this thing out, get it done, accurate, perfect, and correct quickly so I can get paid. So there's different kinds of pressure. If this was just for fun and time were not an issue, if I had a healthy retirement, or if I had a spouse that made a lot of money, I wouldn't have to worry about this stuff so much. But I don't. I am the breadwinner in the family, and so finances are an issue. I have not got all day. I can't spend 3 days getting this correct. Now while I'm at it, so I'm just going to start measuring everything. I think this ear is left over from, oh yeah, I've got his ear too big. So there we go. Let's make his ear smaller. Okay, the width of this eye. Now, let me go to my other tool. Well, let me use the bad tool for a minute. Okay, what's wrong with this? Well, the points, you can't really hurt yourself very easily. There's no way in the world I'm going to do that here, because youch, those are sharp. So these are much more precise. And then finally, let's here's the most precise. Now, never mind, I'll just leave it at that. This is a pen. You could use I'm assuming most of you used to have a compass around the house, because you used one in 10th grade geometry class, if nothing else, right? So you used to have a compass, and you might still do somewhere. So that's the width of that eye, and his pupil is slightly closer. So there you go. I'm making a judgment already, even with all this. With all these tricks, I'm still having to use my my judgment, my eyeball. Does that make sense? I'm using this now to roughly rough in the bottom of Gerhardt's eyes, the angle of the bottom. Let me go back to my super precise. Now, let's go from corner of eye to corner of eye. And then let's measure this eye right here. Should be slightly smaller. Yeah. Okay, got that right. Now, do I even need to? I like to think I don't really need to do that, but heck, why not? Let's do. And some of you are saying, man, you need a sharper pencil. Da, 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 da. I agree. That's why I have a pencil sharpener right here. All right, now this pencil is quite sharp again. I also, by doing all this kind of stuff, I'm in danger of absolutely boring you guys to tears. Okay, now let's. Whoops. We still going on Facebook? I think we are, even though we had some issues. I want to go from the middle of Gerhardt's left pupil to the tip of his nose. Now, if I want to get this accurate, then I can't go like this. I have to keep this angle. The more accurate, the better I can do that, the more accurate I'll be. So that, according to that, that's the tip of his nose. Now let's double check it by going over here from this pupil to the tip of his nose, of course, is a longer distance. Let's check that now. Ooh, that doesn't look good. All right, so I'm going to make adjustment there. Now I can do the width of his nose. I have a hunch that this kind of stuff that I'm doing, even though I'm saying, it's not the way I like to paint and so on and so forth, I have a hunch that this degree of fussiness is it is going to drive some of you berserk. You're looking and say, there is no way on God's green earth I will ever do anything like that. And I've come to learn to some degree that people are different. And yet there's some other people watching me say, oh my goodness, this is priceless. I wondered how I could do that. Okay, so there you go. So some of you are going berserk by all this stuff. Others you are going berserk positively, like, oh my goodness, this is fantastic. And again, I'm just, three cheers for vive la différence, right? Thank God we're all different. Frankly, I'm kind of glad, myself personally, glad that I have the capacity to do extremely fussy technical work when I need to, because it helps. And even that, do you understand? I've already said this is not the way I'd prefer to paint. I'd rather just fly by the seat of my pants and do it perfectly without any of this crazy technical tricks. So to some extent, I'm admitting to you how bad I am at drawing, right? Because if I was really good at drawing, I wouldn't have to do any of these crazy shenanigans. Are you with me? And I'm pretty good at drawing. I don't know if did you catch that subtle distinction there? I'm pretty good at drawing compared to most people and most artists. I'm not claiming to be the best in the world or anything like that. As I like to say, people use my name and Rembrandt's name in the same sentence all the time. That sentence is, well, he sure ain't no Rembrandt. And there you go. So that's my oft-repeated joke. Let's do the width of Gerhardt's head. Again, see the angle is quite important. I'm trying to get, and of course we're measuring here size of head with hair, and as you can imagine, that's quite the challenge. Let's use another photomechanical device. I've got it right around here somewhere. Here it is. If you're a regular, you've seen this before. This is a deceptively simple little trick that I invented. To say I invented it is a little bit pompous, to tell you the truth. It's a very simple device that I whipped up one day. It was after I got home from doing a wedding, from doing a wedding painting, and it dawned on me, you know what? I think this might help. Okay, so it's simply a piece of plexiglass, thick plexiglass. That's important. Thin would be much harder to work with. And I don't know if you can see it, and it's all dirty. It's got speckles all over it. But I have scratched into one side very, very carefully with a sharp point lines, horizontal. They're equidistant this way and this way, but they're not like 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, or half an inch, quarter inch, anything like that. They're just random, but they're the same. And for what it's worth, the two lines that cross right in the middle, I tinted those red, so they stand out a little bit. Now, very simple tool. What this does, of course, it allows me to line things up like this, which I find is one of the most common mistakes that I make as an artist. I get things out of alignment. I don't even notice. Like, did you compare? Let's say let's do this. The inside, the very corner of his eye. How does that compare? Well, his nostril goes outside it. let's just start with that. Let's just start with the edge of his nostril. And it goes out, you know, about a 32nd of an inch. Yep, checks. Now let's put it, now, okay, so while I'm using it, let me explain. What is the genius of lines going this way and this way is it's very easy for our brain to see straightness. If there were only lines going this way, our brain, our eye wouldn't be quite as good at catching offness. Are you with me? But the fact that it's lines going both ways, it's like have you ever noticed? And I'm going to blame this on women, but your wife or the woman in the family, the woman in the house, you're hanging pictures on the wall. And somebody's job is to stand there and hold the corner, and it's somebody else's job to walk across the room, straight across the room, by the way, not at an angle, and say, okay, that corner, up, oh, just a tiny bit, up, perfect. Have you noticed? And I think human beings are remarkably good at getting pictures on the wall straight. And part of the reason is because when there's a picture on the wall, there's both horizontal and vertical lines. So that's what I'm tapping into here. So let's go back then to, and the reason for the thickness is so you can slap this down on a wet painting, which I do, which is part of the reason why it's so dirty. It just needs cleaning. And you can hold it by the edge that's away from the painting without getting your fingers in the paint. Does that make sense? So some of you saying, why does it have to be thick? Well, it doesn't. You can use a thin one, but it's going to be a whole lot more messy. All right, so let's check now the inside of the corner of his eye and the edge of his mouth. Yeah, pretty close. But I made a little, but in spite of that, made a little change now. And likewise, now let's check the angle of his mouth and his eyes. And again, see, this is kind of like the yardstick thing, because I've got lines going both ways. It helps me a little bit. And then I can use actually the edge of this, because my lines, of course, are perfectly parallel to the edge of this. So that's just yet one more tool that you can throw in your box. It's very, very simple. Now I'm drawing without instruments right at the moment. Now I'm just flying by the seat of my pants, so to speak. Here's a measurement I want to catch. Turns out I'm using this actually more than the other one. Do you understand why? This one, there's just a slight danger of that getting bumped while you're moving it around. This one, bumping won't affect it. I want to get the distance from the top of his eye to the crease above his eye to the bottom of his eyebrow. Well, okay. And then the thickness of his eyebrow. So now I'm drawing just by the seat of my pants, so to speak, flying without instruments. Now I'm using this device to see how far past his eye is the end of his eyebrow. And then his eyebrow fades out considerably. Whoops, we just lost Gerhardt. And I don't know about you, but even doing all this, now once again, I'm putting this up and being quite careful that it's perfectly parallel to the painting. Otherwise, I have to do a lot more work. Little Gerhardt is actually starting to show up here on my canvas. I want to do the width of the peak of his forehead. So let's go from this the bottom of the V there, the hair in front of his ear, because I just tried to draw, I just rendered that, just drew that a little while ago. Keeping this angle stiff. Ooh, there we go. There we go. That's better. So that will help us. Let's go this way. Now, let's double check that from the bottom of his lip to the bottom of his chin. Yeah, that checks out. So I've got a really bad line, erroneous early mark here. Let's go from the edge of his neck to the edge of his neck right here. Ooh, something's not right. Something's not right. Okay, this needs to come in a little bit. Happiness is finding your mistakes, quote unquote. Shoot, let's go. Let's do a crease in his neck right here. And then from the chin to the top of his collar. Ooh, this needs to come down about 1/16 of an inch. Happiness, always. Happiness is finding your mistakes. Now let's check the width of his collar. Whoa, that's about 1/8 of an inch off. Wow, that was way off. Let's do from that intersection under his arm to the peak of the shoulder. Looking for a place to put that down. Yep, okay, I had that about right. Let's put this down here for now. Let's do the height of this, how much of this ear is showing. Okay, close enough. Let's look at compare the, now, are you noticing that there's two ways to do this tool right here? One is to do north, south, east, west according to the center of the earth, in other words, level. The other is to tilt it so it's parallel with his head tilted. But at the moment, I'm going to do straight, I called it north, south, east, west, funny way to put it. About 1/16 of an inch above this line. There we go. He doesn't look much like himself yet because he has his white teeth showing and there's no white teeth here at all. Whew. All right, I'm going to say that's enough crazy micro measuring. Enough for just a little while. Let's go ahead and start painting. And to do that, I have a clipboard here and a clamp. You don't need all these tools to paint. I want you to know that. I don't want to be Joe, the tool guy. But if you're serious, it's my career, so of course I'm serious. But you just collect stuff in spite of your. I mean, this I don't have this because I'm an artist. I have this because I'm a carpenter. But doggone, look, it helps hold my reference. But again, I don't want to be. In music, the term is called a gearhead. There's some musicians that are better at buying stuff than they are playing stuff. Well, hello, Anson. Good to have you on board, my old friend. And hello, Jane. Hello, Marcus. It's James. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that James is using something similar. Can I remember his name? I watched another kind of a big dog portrait painter a couple weeks ago. I'm forgetting his name. I'll tell it to you if I think of it. Anyway, he was using the computer printer, printout, and trace on plastic trick. And that made me feel good. Well, first of all, it's always a little encouraging when you find other artists, have used the same tricks. There's some strange kind of encouragement there. It's like, oh, wow, how about that? I did it right. All right, I'm not going to show you me mixing my paint. If you're new to my channel, there's my palette. It's glass with a gator board, just any kind of board on the back, and a aluminum trim. And I painted the gator board kind of a neutral brown. It's actually a brighter brown than it ought to be, but I've gotten completely used to it now, so it doesn't matter. But it's having your palette painted a earth tone or flesh tone helps, especially with portraits. All right, now we're back to another trick here. Boy, talk about photomechanical tricks. We're knocking them out of the park today. I've just mixed a colored paint. Oh, I don't even have to test it. I'm going to show you another trick. This one I did not invent, and I don't know who invented it, but the person I learned it from was Mark Carter, Carter with a D, Carter. You've been noticing that all my prints are laminated in plastic. But 3 years ago, I bought a $150 laminating machine. It's one of the best investments I've ever made for being an artist. I use the heck out of that thing. All right, so once it's laminated, and somebody said, well, could you just put it in a plastic sleeve? I'm going to try that one time. I don't, it would be almost as good as this, not quite. Not as good because there's wiggle between the, you know, the sleeve would come slack away from the image. This is secure. Anyway, here's the trick. I'm trying to match the main color in, what's his name? Now, I'm assuming that you can see that mark. I can certainly see it. So that's my proof that it's not the right color. So I'm going to make it redder and darker. When I put a mark up there that I can't see, doggone. I can hardly see that, and you probably can't see it at all. How close can I zoom? Not very. Okay, here, tell you what, just for fun, just I've never done this before. Let's erase this, and you guys are going to get a bit of a earthquake ride here, but whoops, there we go. All right, I want to hold it as close to that as I can. How close can I get without casting a shadow? All right, watch this. And you can see that just barely. So the goal is to put a color of paint on there that you essentially can't see. That tells me then that the paint that's on my brush right now is the right color, just for a little part of Gerhardt's cheek. It's not the whole thing, of course. We're made out of flesh. Did you ever figure that out? We are made out of flesh, and flesh is alive, and it's round, and it's right. That's enough. Let me see if it's close for his forehead. Oh, close enough for starters. So this none of this will be the final color that I will put on Gerhardt's face or on his cheek, forehead, but it's close enough to get started. So I hope you caught that. That was a neat trick I did not make up. You could call what I'm doing here, you really could call it blocking in, couldn't you? That's essentially what I'm doing. It's a very fussy form. What I'm doing now, not with the pencil. The pencil, that's called drawing. It's a very esoteric term. Not many people know it. I'm being silly. It's called drawing. And it's just one way. You know the little expression, more than one way to skin that cat? Yeah. Well, there's more than one way, of course, and I've just shown you half a dozen or more different tricks for getting the drawing correct. Now, I don't think I need to point out, but I should point out that this is a pretty darn small portrait, right? Had you noticed? What is it? 3 inches, I guess, from chin to top of head, something like that. And in my opinion, I keep saying I would like to see how did John Singer Sargent or any great portrait painter, how did they do tiny portraits? And of course, what I suspect is that they never would. they just wouldn't. Yeah, but yeah, that's. I would like to know, because I think the rules change. Some of the rules change slightly, but I say that hesitantly because it's just as easy for that I'm speaking, that I'm to use my generation, that it's a cop out. Do they still say kids even know what the word cop out means? Nah, it's not a word. It's a silly hippieism. Let's not solemnize the stupid term by calling it a word. Cop out. Where in the world did that come from? Anyway. I'm going to mix up some of the shade color of this. I will tell you some of the main colors that I use, and this is not so much, this is almost something worth taking notes on. The three main colors I use are, of course, titanium white, and oxide red, which just those two alone almost make a perfect flesh tone. Titanium white and oxide red. Oxide red, of course, is a brown. And then raw umber, which is a very, very neutral, grayish brown. It's a dull, very dull brown, and I like it because it kills color. So raw umber and yellow ochre. A little bit too dark. Mix up a little bit of white into that. I'm trying to get the color of the crease in his cheek here. Bingo. Can't even see it. Hello, Mark Hines. Hello, Adina and Melinda Dilday. How fun. I would love to have you in one of my workshops. Hello, Mark. Good evening indeed. Good to have you on board with us. Huh. That's fun to know, Marcus. That I do watch. I get a kick out of James Gurney. I mean, he's a really fun personality. He's an incredible illustrator and artist, and he does these little gouache plein air paintings, like 4 by 6 inches. Crazy. 5 by 8 maybe at the largest. I'm not sure they're even that big. Anyway, he's a lot of fun to watch. Thanks for mentioning him. So let me summarize a little bit, very briefly, what I said earlier. Using all these tricks causes your skills to deteriorate. But use them. It's perfectly legal. Just realize that your skills are deteriorating. So combine your use of these tricks with academic study. I don't mean academic like going to school. I just mean with, doing the hard work of learning stuff. That is, if you want to be a better artist. You don't have to do anything, of course, that I'm suggesting. I'm going to live dangerously just for a second, because I think I'm getting somewhat close to a likeness here, but there's some big obstacles in the way. The number one is being that he doesn't have any teeth. Okay, now one of the dangers with painting teeth and the whites of the eyes is that we paint them too white, especially in the case of the eyes, because we call them whites, therefore We tend to paint them too white. And of course, teeth as well. Now, does that mean when we're doing a portrait, is it okay for us to exaggerate, let's say, ever so slightly, the whites of the eyes? Yes, certainly. It's like there's a number of things you can do in portraiture that you're almost expected to do. Like you're expected to slenderize your client by enough so that he or she looks good, but not so much that he or she notices. Fair enough? Are you allowed to, say, add a slight glow to the cheek of the woman? Absolutely. How much? Enough so she looks good, not so much that she notices. So are you allowed to make the make the teeth whiter? The answer is yes. Enough to look good, not so much that somebody would look at it and say, "Hey, you made my teeth whiter." Fair enough? So that's a pretty fine line. But that's what I'm thinking. Since I've got a lightish color on my brushes, I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of the whites of the eyes here. Ooh, he looks terrible now. It happens so often. My list of colors, and again, I'm not sure that this list that I gave you a minute ago is really worth taking notes on. I really am not sure that it is. Just other people may have strong and much better opinions about what colors to use. I was just giving you my 2 cents worth, and that might be all that it's worth. It's 2 cents. But for those of you who missed it or want to hear it, okay, of course titanium white. Almost everything in flesh tone is mixed with titanium white, except for darks, like pupils of the eyes and the iris and the eyelashes and so forth. The color I use the most is oxide red, which is it's very close to burnt sienna. A very, I'm just taking some wild pot shots here. I'm just, again, flying by the seat of my pants, or instrument free as I call it, doing some colors that would just get me close. I'm doing the inside of his ear over here, the inside of this ear over here. Okay, colors. Oxide red, yellow ochre, raw umber, and scarlet lake. Scarlet lake is a warm red tending toward orange, and naphthol crimson is one I use a little bit in portraiture. That's a cool red. And that's good enough. And then a hodgepodge of other stuff. My personality tends toward obsessive compulsive, Mr. Orderly, Mr. Neat-y. I tend to be a neatnik. So let me show you my palette once again. Whoops, I've got liquid flowing off it. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I use rainbow from here, purple all the way around to ultramarine. The next color next to that would be purple, so that's a circle. Then my browns are light to dark. And for what it's worth, I always put essentially the same color. It took me years and years to get to this point, but I essentially put the same colors on my palette. No matter what I'm painting, no matter where I'm painting. Not if I'm doing watercolor. I have a dedicated watercolor palette for portraiture, separate from my regular watercolor. I don't do that many watercolor portraits, so it doesn't get used that often, but I have it. It's ready to go when I need it. Once again, I'm just doing some flying by the seat of my pants, some rough approximate color. So in the spirit of blocking in, if you will. So I use all the colors on my palette eventually in the course of doing a portrait. Was not by any means limited to the short list I just gave you, but those are the colors I use the most. And again, I'm not even sure that's worth taking note of. That's just my opinion. he looks completely weird. I'm trying not to panic. If I get into a real panic, I'll quit broadcasting. Right? Looks like a cooking show. Whoops. Let's edit that part out. I'm trying to decide where to go. Let me do some light tones, light highlights on his face. And there's more yellow in those, in that, in those facial highlights than I thought. Oh, can you see up here? The sunny side of his face. There's quite a bit of yellow in it. Wow. Yeah, close enough. By the way, I'm planning to utilize essentially the same process here on Gerhardt that I did on his twin sister, Lily. That is to say, I'm going to try to get close on his face today. Tomorrow when I come back, all of today's work will be dry and I will nail it down. I'll get it perfect, so to speak. You did not see me doing any blending there. No, you did not. That was a figment of your imagination. I did not just take this brush and blend. Some of you irregulars know that's a no-no. In the kind of portraits I would like to be able to do, the color gradations are not achieved by smushing the paint together, but by carefully matching each slightly various tiny little area of the face. That ear I think is too light, but maybe, no, you know what, I'm to the point where I better do some color matching, so hang on here just a second. Let's, that is too light. Darn it. So by the way, what you're seeing here is very often, at least for a mid-level, I'll call myself a mid-range portrait painter like this, flying by the seat of my pants, using my color intuition is often not all that good. Because I thought maybe that color I was putting on his ear, I knew it was light, but I didn't know how far off I was, and I was quite far off. So I'm messing it up right now just to push it back. I've got the trick, the point being the trick that I learned from Mark Carter about matching the color. And my guess is the first time you try it, you'll be amazed and mildly dismayed. Hopefully we can try to keep it at mildly dismayed at how off your estimation is. That certainly was my experience when I first started. But it works. It's a great trick, and more people should use the trick. I'm actually going to pick up a tiny bit of Indian yellow. Little, you probably know, a little Indian yellow goes a long way. There's three colors, three of my favorite colors actually, but all three of them, Indian yellow, phthalo blue, and permanent rose, are all very pungent or poignant or powerful there. As long as it begins with a P, we're good. They're very powerful colors, and a little bit goes a long way. So much so that some early journey artists swear off using those colors. Ooh, I don't like phthalo blue and blah blah blah. But that is, get over that really quickly. No, that is not the proper response. Yes, phthalo blue is like driving wild horses, but if you want to paint halfway decent, you need that color, in my opinion. Now, okay, wait a minute. What did I just do? I just jerked the chain of a bunch of you guys, because you're in the stage of your journey, which is perfectly appropriate, where you're learning the magic of a limited palette. Okay, and Mark Carter, by the way, is a big-time limited palette guy, and I think everybody should go through their limited palette season, and then grow out of it. Nothing against Mark, but in fact, I'll go one step further and say most early journey painters, and an early journey painter, that can mean anything, but first half of life painter, most early journey painters who are in the first half of their artistic life, that is to say, they're learning how to paint stuff that looks like stuff. In fact, they should paint most of the time, if not exclusively, they should paint most of the time. I'm laughing at the expression he's got on his face right at the moment. Is quite amusing. You should paint with a limited palette. Paint with a limited palette until you learn how to drive. It's like training wheels. Don't imitate my palette with 14 colors or whatever it is. But then some of you are saying, well, I can do all that with just 3 colors. Well, so could I when I was in 7th grade. That sounded smart alecky, but it's exactly true. I was in 7th grade when I felt like I had a little bit of God in me. It's like, oh my goodness, I can make all the colors in the world. I was discovering color mixing, truly in 7th grade. And at home, just playing. My dad was an artist, so there were art stuff around, and I was inclined toward art. Anyway, I remember learning, wow, just with these 5 colors, red, blue, yellow, black, and white, I can match any color on the planet. So anyway, yes, it can be done. Then why do I have 14? Well, that's because I grew up a little bit. Turns out that no matter which limited, now let me back up. I think every artist should go, in the early stages of learning to paint realism, you should use a limited palette. Okay, I've said that. Have I established that? Okay, then why do you ever grow beyond that? Well, the reason is because none of those limited palette colors are pure in the physics sense of the word. There's no such thing as a perfect red, blue, or yellow. There's no such thing, in fact, as a perfect black or white. They all have chemical imperfections in them. And he's getting weirder and weirder looking as we go. Hey, okay, I know what to do. Here, let's do one final, and I'm gonna leave you and just paint without your company, for I've shown you plenty of tricks. But before we do, I'm going to show you the final and the worst of all photo mechanical tricks. First of all, it's a Winsor Newton Series 7 brush. I have 2 of them here. They're the most precious brush in the world, Winsor Newton Series 7. Do write that down. You need it for your signature, if nothing else. It's a watercolor brush, so the fact that I'm using them for oils is a travesty. I always feel like I should write a letter to the manufacturer to repent, say, I'm so sorry I'm taking your beautiful brushes and using them for oils. And I don't like to do this any more than I like using a yardstick and a compass and all those other tricks I was showing you. Are you with me? I don't like using brushes this small. It admits not to my skill, but to quite the opposite, to my lack of skill. But heck, at the moment, I've got a more pressing issue than lack of skill. And it is finish this darn painting and get paid. And hey, at least, and again, here's just for those of you who joined, here's an unfinished, this is not finished. I've got one whole session, a couple hours to go yet on her face. She's almost perfect. The only problem is she's too hard, so I need to soften her. That's another whole lesson. I love this hand, by the way. That hand right there, that's a little bit of good painting right there. That's some good, I'm proud of that. I'm going to doctor that too, and both hands actually. But her face is overworked, and I'm actually going to work on it more and try to create a less overworked look by doing more work on it. But part of what I'm saying is like, okay, ridicule me because I need to use tricks, fine. But the proof's in the pudding. The bottom line is go to my website and look at my portraits. The bottom line is, but can the boy do a good portrait? And the answer is, yeah, pretty good. But I almost sound like I'm being defensive. I'm trying to be instructive more than defensive. Okay, here's the absolute worst tool of all, which is a small sable brush, and get this. I need to back out again so you can see me, and get this. Of course, I'm 66 years old, so I wear glasses. Uh-oh, Jose, you can't hear me. Uh-oh. Let's see if that's any better. We did have some problems with our Facebook microphone a while ago, but people said they could hear me. I'm sorry about that. Hello, Mark and Richard, if I haven't, and Samar, old friend from Facebook days years ago. Okay, here's the worst tool of all. 2 pairs of glasses at the same time. Am I not the paragon of style here? No, I am not. That's the answer to that question. Am I not? No. And look at how I'm holding the brush. Oh my goodness, this is the kind of stuff that I typically swear at and swear off. But there comes a time when you're doing a portrait that's 3 inches tall. And by the way, this right here is part of the reason why his sister, the little girl I just showed you, looks overworked. I'll explain this a little bit. So, okay, I'm still on topic of, that eyebrow's way too dark, I know that, but it's in the right place. I'm still on topic of tricks, little photomechanical tricks of the trade to get the job done, okay? I'm winding down this broadcast. This will be one of my last ones. Here's a trick. I don't know anybody, I've never heard anybody else say this, but work, grunt, strain, fuss, fume, death control grip, 2 pairs of glasses, measuring, adjusting, blah, 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 tracing, doing whatever you need to do to get the likeness perfect. I'm good enough artist that I can get a likeness, but it's rarely perfect. There's always a little something off. After having painted in that manner, if I left it at that, it'd be like that girl, accurate but overdone. So I do a final day of painting where I literally mess up my painting. I come in with a bigger brush, with more classic, I call it sargentizing my painting, with bigger brush, classic marks, classic movements, fudges, fuzziness, softness, and so forth, and try to make it look like I didn't paint it this way. Now you can call that cheating, go right ahead. It is, but it's whatever to do to get the job done. Can you hear me now, Jose? You guys on Facebook, are you all able to hear me? Oh, Videna, you can use some of these tricks. You just can't use the print one. That's all right. Yeah, getting old with the 2 glasses. You got that right. Anyway, I am certainly going to end this broadcast here shortly. I'll let you watch me two glasses painting for just a few more minutes, and then we'll get out of here. So I told you about the sargentizing. In fact, I did a broadcast just last week. You can look it up, where I called it sargentizing a portrait. But that comes in, for me, if I was good, I could do it first time around. Well, that shows you how not good I am, right? But I'm good enough to know that it needs to be done, and I'm good enough to have some idea how to do it. But I wish I were able to do it, the way John Singer Sargent did from the get-go. But doggone it, I'm just not as good as him. How humiliating to not be as good as John Singer Sargent or Rembrandt. I'll use the same joke, right? People use my name and John Singer Sargent's in the same sentence all the time. Well, he sure ain't no John Singer Sargent. There. How many times can I tell you that joke? Still think it's funny. I don't know, a few more, I suppose. Teeth. When you can see the model's teeth, it turns out the shape of teeth is immense, is huge in capturing a likeness. It's like, who'd have thunk it? And that's part of the reason, not the only one by any means, but it's part of the reason why the classic artists did not do open smile. Now, part of it was because a model typically can't smile for hours on end. Of course, we all want our paintings to look as though they were done from life. Not this one, right? There's no question. I mean, everything I'm doing here is low life, low budget, except that I'm doing a beautiful painting of somebody's beautiful children. So that aspect of it's not, what did I call it, low life, of all the nerve. But you know what I mean? I'm not on the verge of entering, in the sense of competition, I am not on the verge of entering the National Portrait Society. Happiness is knowing, at least to some degree, where you fit in. Believe me, I'm not making any pretenses that I'm like some great portrait painter. If I were, I wouldn't be doing half of this embarrassing stuff live on YouTube TV, so to speak. But that's enough. I'm going to fuss and fume and rant and rave and and do death control grip with 2 pairs of glasses all by myself for the next hour or 2 while I get Gerhardt all squared away. He'll be beautiful. He'll look like himself. He will probably be a little bit overworked and a little bit tight. Yeah, that's right. 2 hands and 6 eyes. That's exactly right. Hello, Gwendolyn. Glad to have you here. All right, I'm going to leave you. You're going to leave me. You're going to leave me alone? And you still can't hear me. Oh, no, that was an old comment. I'm hoping you can now. Anyway, bye. I'll bring you back in. If I do anything exciting, I promise to bring you back on board. Okay? Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.